Uncle Doug,
Hello.
when you're at work,
Yes.
when you're in the workplace, it's getting harder and harder to do the things that we feel entitled to do.
I know. I can't give those Biden back rubs anymore. My famous Biden back rub. It's bullshit.
And soon we're not going to be able to do anything at all. Dan, what do you think?
Well, I being the only one here who doesn't have a workplace that he doesn't just choose for himself, I don't have much to say on some of those topics. But I did. Here's the thing: as we record this right now, we are in the middle of Mormon General Conference weekend.
That's right.
Which is the time of year every year growing up when I was so happy not to have to go to Mormon church.
That's right.
But then my house was filled with the intonings of old men who all had the same rhythm when they spoke, and it was
It's the most boring time of the year.
It's a huge thing for Mormons. It's like the World Cup, except it happens twice a year, and there are no brown people.
And oh, excuse me, they got a black one now.
I know.
Yeah,
that was
that
was
done.
the earth quaked
That's right.
on that one. But one of the so I was some of our listeners may know that I have another show that I cheat on this show with. Or maybe this is the hot girlfriend show.
I think we're the mistress.
And the other one's the wife. Anyway, I was doing, for Thank God I'm Atheist, I was there downtown at Temple Square listening to the
live and in person
in the belly of the beast.
Uncle Dan.
That's right. I was live tweeting, which is something I do not know how to do, but I was doing a lot of tweets about it anyway, in real time. Because I don't know how to use fake time. Anyway, one of the things that I heard, because here's the thing, no matter where you are, even if you're like sitting right front row at General Conference, no matter what, you're going to tune in and out.
Uh-huh.
It's not something that you can pay all of the attention to the whole time.
That's right.
That's physically impossible.
Exactly.
In my in and out tuning, I heard one of the Mormon old men, the apostles of the Mormon Church, tell me, or rather tell his flock, that they should talk about church more. And this was something like, don't be afraid when you're at work, if someone says, how was your weekend, to tell them about how church went for you. That sort of a thing.
And that will be the last time anybody asks you how your weekend was.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And then you'll wonder for years why you eat lunch alone every day.
Yeah, right. And it occurred to me that this is not a Mormon problem. This is a everybody problem.
Yeah.
Everyone in this country runs the risk of, and beyond this country, runs the risk of a coworker who doesn't know to shut up about their religion. In part because so many religions are like explicit about, you need to be getting this word out. You need to be proselytizing, you need to be talking to people about it, or
remember,
Jesus will be mad at you.
Once upon a time, the Mormons really, really pushed this idea of always talking about your religion to the guy next to you on the plane. Remember that?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your mission was never done. Like you were always a missionary, right?
And that's what this guy was saying. He was saying that, we're all missionaries, and, your job on the front lines is to get them primed, and then you hand them off to the professional missionaries, as Doug once was.
That's right.
Don't worry, we've got 16-year-olds to help you.
I never got rid of my pro status, by the way.
19-year-olds, I guess. That's right. You retired a pro.
They retired my placard.
That's right. So I thought we'd do a little bit of a how-to, which is about talking to coworkers or not talking to coworkers about their religion when they're insistent about it.
I got it. Ready?
Okay, go.
Don't.
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
Here, we solved it.
Yeah.
It's a problem that so there's a couple problems here. This isn't, I'm not saying this is a dig because this was me too, but especially when you're fresh out of a religion, guess what, kids? Atheists like to proselytize too.
That's right.
Boy, howdy.
So it's not just a them problem, it's an us problem too. And also, when the religious people start to spout off, it's not always as simple as they say, "Hey, do you want to join my church?" And you say, "No, please never mention it again." There's a lot more to it. There are people talking sort of next to you about their religion. There's a lot of nuance to this conversation. And since both of you fellers are somebody's boss,
That's right.
I thought that this would be an interesting conversation for us to have.
Yeah.
So let's just chat. Let's just throw out a scenario, which is that one of our listeners has a coworker that is normally fine, but at least weekly comes up, finds a way to work Jeebus into the conversation. How do we suggest that they handle that?
Well, there are a lot of variables, obviously.
A lot of variables, yes.
But, speaking as someone who is a boss and also is quite outspoken about their atheism and belief system, I have, not had to necessarily correct myself. I've had to be very careful about what I talk about, when I talk about, etc.
Sure.
But on more than a couple occasions, I've had to have conversations with people who were bringing up their beliefs, some of them aligned with mine.
Right.
And on occasion have had to bring HR into the equation.
Right.
Because people, you are not allowed to create a hostile work environment. And that includes, even if everyone in the room believes one thing and one person doesn't,
right?
You can really put that person into a corner by talking about that. So there are literally legal issues that have to be wrestled with.
Sure.
About that. But I also,
and that's actually the easy part.
That's the easy part.
When it's when they trip all the way into
Correct.
Okay, well, you know
complaint.
what?
When somebody's been made so uncomfortable that they come to the boss.
That's right.
Then that's usually pretty egregious behavior.
Right.
But you're right. That's the easiest one.
Yeah.
That's like just you know what, man. You're constantly throwing your Bible at her. You got to stop doing that.
Right, yeah, you're making the environment uncomfortable. So you have to stop. And but this is tricky because you can't make a policy that just says nobody can talk about things that are important to them.
Mm-hmm.
So no, absolutely not.
So
absolutely not.
There needs to be some of this is about the individual coworker. Me or my hypothetical atheist coworker setting their own boundaries. Mm-hmm. And so how do we do that in a way that doesn't create office tension and ugliness and annoyance? Because let me tell you something. If you do it look, there's a lot of ways to do it. You can just say, don't ever talk to me about this again. Mm-hmm. I hate Jesus. Leave me alone. Mm-hmm. I deny the Holy Spirit, or something like that.
Right.
Like you can horrify them into shutting up.
Right.
And that could work, but you're not going to have a good relationship with them.
Right.
Ever.
Then it's going to be a lot of friction in the workplace. And
right.
And it's not the last time that it will come up.
Right.
You know,
it may not
come up again. I promise.
Yeah, exactly. They will find a passive aggressive way to get you about it.
Yeah.
So what's a better way?
Well, so this is really interesting. So I'll preface this by saying I work in a business that, other than the little pocket of when I worked in it in Utah, tends to not be the most religious workplace in the world in the film business, right? This is a lot of creative people who've run away to join the circus, and many of them left religion to kind of come into. So it's
you're working on the wrong films. You need to get into that sweet Pure Flix action.
That's right. David A.R. White. Are you listening?
I would give my left nut to work on a David Ayer. That would be so funny. To have Eli critiquing my work directly on. So
only if it's a science fiction film set on another planet.
Right.
So we, in the film business, it's a very creative space. It's super collaborative. So there's a lot of room within that. People talk about their motivations and their history and why they're here and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you have to allow for a lot of that.
Right.
So, but there's this really fascinating thing I had to do for IATSE, which is the larger union I'm a part of.
Right.
Where because of the Harvey Weinstein thing, we have to take these, depending on your job classification, you have to take these classes So how to use scaffolding and lifts safely, electricity, thing, right?
Right.
So you have to certify on that every couple years. And there's a new one because of Harvey Weinstein that's sexual harassment or just harassment in the workplace.
Right.
And so
There wasn't
it's a
one
3-hour. No, there wasn't. Well,
In this scenario, what did Harvey do wrong? Was it A, locking the door, B, locking the windows?
So there was some, but it's codified, right? So
Right.
it's like this 3-hour online course that I was really dreading having to take. And it was little film vignettes that you watched of people behaving in the workplace. And I have to say, it was amazing. Like, I learned a ton from it, right? And, there was a lot of gray area. Like, is this wrong or is this right? And it wasn't just issues of a sexual nature. It was like, browbeating people, talking shit about people with a disability, racism, really, really interesting. And
The whole Trump administration.
yeah. And so there was a huge, I was interested to see that from a legal perspective, they thought there's a lot of gray area.
Yeah.
Where it really got problematic. And this is what I've seen happen in working in the film business when I used to work in it in Utah. And there were a lot of Mormon filmmakers in position of power. Is the power dynamic was very frequently abused by religious people.
Right.
Right. That they proselytized pretty openly, and if they weren't doing that, they were being extremely judgmental in very inappropriate ways of people who behaved in ways that didn't comport with Mormonism. So if you were drunk, if you were hungover, or you slept around, or you weren't, you were an unmarried woman who liked boys, like there were a lot of comments that way, and I think that was very, very common.
Right.
And in non-union filmmaking and these small productions, there really was no HR department, right? You just kind of had to take it. You could leave, or you just had to take it. So I don't know. In that case, I think in those cases where it is, it's not usually a problem if it's someone lower on the food chain talking about stuff, because nobody's directly forced to listen to it, right?
Right.
So you can kind of opt out of the conversation unless you're just stuck in a truck for 12 hours with this guy, right?
You can't always, though. I mean,
Right.
especially if you're at a desk and they're one cubicle over, you're gonna hear it, and so
Right.
So and there is an interesting moment where it tips from mild annoyance over into harassment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Harassment. And religious people, because they believe very, very, very deeply in a thing, cannot see it as It's very hard for them to understand that's harassing. They think they're giving you a truth.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're desperate for you to accept it. So to me, that's deranging, right? They have some fail safes in their brain have been switched off by these ideas.
Right.
And so I think, I think it's perfectly okay for someone to say, I went on a mission and I'm a Mormon, and that's part of their story. Like, it's completely okay until it gets into and you must be too.
Right.
And that's when you need to, they're trained to ignore social cues.
Yeah, and
Right.
that's the interesting trick is when the social cue thing breaks down, and you can't just subtly indicate to them, I'm uncomfortable with this.
Yeah.
And that's when I think here's the problem: a lot of people are not comfortable with directness,
Right.
and they're not comfortable with being direct,
Right.
But
Right.
it's kind of what's called for in this situation.
Well, and I look at it the same way I would look at someone in the workplace telling a racially insensitive or sexually explicit joke.
right.
That you don't necessarily have to say, "Hey, you're being racist, knock it off." You can say, like, "Hey, listen, I don't think we should be talking about religion in the workplace. Not everybody feels the same way.
Right.
Let's keep that out of here, guys. Hey, that joke's not okay." You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
You should say something. How you go about it, if you keep it really general and say, I really don't like when we talk religion or we talk sex in the workplace, but you should say something.
Yeah, I think, and I think you made a really interesting distinction there, Doug, which is if you make it about yourself rather than about them, it will probably go over a little bit better.
Right.
Meaning, like, if you don't say you're an idiot for believing that, or
Right.
you're the racist. If you don't point the finger at them, if you just say, hey, look, in my personal thing, I'm not comfortable with this kind of talk in the workplace.
It's sticky, guys. Let's not have that in
So
here.
let's so maybe we can just look. I'm fine with you talking about like how much fun you had at the church picnic, but I'm not fun with you talking about theology here in the workplace. And that's
or
that's
making
just a,
making demands of other people,
Right.
Making insisting that they should live as in a way that you approve of. So,
but let's not pretend that those demands don't come masked as not demands. So like
Of
for
course.
for instance, a lot of the time it's going to be things like, your coworker has a baby, and then everybody's like, "Oh, you were so blessed. Oh, God has blessed you so much." Sam, don't you think that it's beautiful how God has blessed them? And it's like,
Right.
I'm pulled into this, but I'm not being asked much. You know what? They're not saying join my church.
Right.
So it's just and it sounds super dickish to say, no, God didn't bless you with that baby.
Take out your Planned Parenthood membership card.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So like these can be tricky waters, and
Yes.
that can be a good time for you to say, yeah, what a beautiful baby. And then later take the other person aside and just say, hey, don't pull me into those things.
Listen, and to your earlier point, Dan, I have myself on a more than a few occasions had to edit other atheists
Yeah.
and people who were
Yes.
a liberal leaning politically when I knew there was someone in the room who was religious or who was conservative, and been like, hey guys, let's not do politics right now, you guys. Let's knock this off.
Hey, listen, I've been that dickhead. I've been that atheist asshole at work because
we all have.
because it's
Yeah.
fun. And
Yeah.
it's one of those things where if the other person starts talking about religion, it can be delightful
Right.
to just burst that bubble.
Exactly.
Right.
But
And
it's
I-
just
I
it's
did-
just not good for the workplace. That's that's not you're going to create an unhealthy
It's
environment.
not the right place for it.
And you're going to and you may be creating a hostile work
That's right.
environment. That's never good.
And
there's
it-
never
right.
a time when creating a hostile work environment is a good or acceptable thing.
And there are places during the course of a workday that conversation might be totally fine. If you're sitting down to lunch or you're traveling or you're one-on-one and someone's just like, well, I understand you're an atheist. What's that about? Have at it.
If they ask,
Of course.
but yeah, I
It's
mean,
a-
but
it-
even
it-
then, it's
that-
still tricky.
It's a bit tricky,
It's-
but consent
that's a
is
consent
a big part
question.
of this. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
Is if someone is asking, it's different than if you are just offering unsolicited. And, I've had to be much more careful, as you guys were saying, since I've become kind of the boss, right? Since
Right.
I'm in charge of a large group of people. I have to be really, really careful about the things I say like that. Not because I'm worried about, HR or lawsuit. I just don't want to be a dick.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right? I just don't want to force people into uncomfortable situations that they don't want to be in. So going back a bit, I don't know if you guys saw another thing that came out of this weekend's Mormon General Conference on this subject
Oh,
was be relentless. The people in your life who say they don't want to be Mormons or left the church or don't want to hear about it, be relentless. Hound them.
Come at me, bro.
Throw your arms.
Come at me, bro.
There was a quote.
At how
There
to
was a
heretic.
quote. There was a quote that said, "Throw your arms around their neck and kiss them." So
Don't do that.
this is not getting better. And
No.
I'm just talking about the Mormon specific thing. It's
Yep.
not going to get better. And Mormons, the only social cue Mormons ever seem to notice is like a double-handed swing from a sledgehammer.
Right.
So you can say 100 times, "No, thanks, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you. So no, I'm not going to come to your social thing. No, thank you. I'm good. I have plans Saturday."
Right.
And they're relentless. And sometimes you have to push, as I've done a few times in the past. I'm like, "Hey, man, I've told you 10 times. Would you back the fuck up?"
right. And
And
sometimes
the-
you
and-
got to get that forceful.
yeah, and it
And
sucks
then
to
they
have to
gasp.
do that. Yeah, they gasp.
They
exactly.
gasp.
Yeah.
Right.
I
You're
act-
so rude.
I will sometimes put and this is very, very rare in my life, but I have been known to put a preemptive hammer down hard, just so that the environment is clear. For instance, there was one time I was in a play, and this was it was a community theater production, and in Utah, community theater often means everybody is Mormon or
Right.
there's one non-Mormon or whatever. And
Right.
so we were prepping for the show. We were we were in dress rehearsals, which meant that we were about to open the show. And one of the very well-meaning woman, and strangely a lesbian woman who was not Mormon but was a Christian, said, "Well, she just sort of offhandedly said, well, we're when we have our prayer before every performance, and before she could even finish her sentence, I was like, nope, we're not doing that." And she was like, what? No, we're not going to do that. Nope, definitely not.
Right.
And I'm in no higher a position of power than she was, but it was just a matter of like, in part because I know that I can be that forceful. I'm comfortable with that level of confrontation, and I know other people in the group who wouldn't have been comfortable and would have just sat through that prayer and just been made uncomfortable every damn night and whatever.
Right.
So I was just like, feel free to pray on your way here. Pray on your own time. That's all cool. We're definitely not doing a cast prayer. And she was like, well, every place else that I've ever worked, we've done a cast prayer. Okay. Not here, though.
Exactly.
That's not happening.
Super duper. Great story.
And that's the thing is I think that we don't advocate the confrontation on this podcast, obviously, but I do think that people proselytizing or pushing their beliefs too hard in the workplace should be treated like people saying racially insensitive things in the workplace.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's it's something that can create that level of hostility and discomfort and can make people feel really, really shitty. So it doesn't belong there. So you just got to get it out.
If you see a guy on the street yelling Bible quotes at a family, have at it, man.
Yeah, go.
You've been training all
Yeah.
your life for this.
Yeah, exactly. You can go after that person,
Yeah.
or like some God botherer is yelling at a party.
You get some.
Oh, you sharpen those knives and have at it. But in the work environment, that ain't right.
That's right.
All right,
Yeah,
fellas.
I just think it's try to make sure everybody can do the task in a comfortable space.
Yeah.
And, but I would say if somebody is proselytizing at work, if somebody's being really pushy about it, don't let it slide once,
That's right.
right? Always comment. Always say something, because every time you let it slide, they're going to take, give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
Yeah.
So always say something. You don't have to be a dick every time. Just say, hey, man, that's a little much for me.
Yeah, let's
That's a
keep
little
this
much
out.
for your-"
Let's not talk about politics or religion, guys. It's too sticky.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad that we solved yet another world problem.
We did it.
And with that, let's move on.
Wahoo!